Very good evening, dear students. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu News Analysis. So today is 21st July 2025 and today we have some very important topics from different newspapers. So one by one we'll try to discuss all these important topics in a very detailed and in-depth manner. So the PDF of this discussion is also available. So if you want, you can download the PDF of this class as well in the description section. So without any further delay, let's get into the discussion and let's understand all these important topics in a very detailed and in-depth manner. And the first topic with which we are going to start this session is about India's aviation safety and the reforms that are required. And in fact, this article has been given in the Hindu newspaper, and this is important for General Studies paper 3. So therefore, we all knew the context. So the context is the recent Ahmedabad Air India aircraft crash or airplane crash, right? So the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, which has recently released a preliminary report on the Ahmedabad Air India plane crash that took place on June 12th, 2025. And it involves a Boeing 787 aircraft from Air India. However, it remains inconclusive, the preliminary report, so it remains inconclusive. So therefore, it has raised several concerns over the aviation safety oversight and even the regulatory failures that have been taking place in India. And in fact, the aircraft safety is a very important, or the overall aviation safety is also very important, particularly in the context of growing aviation traffic in India. So therefore, let's delve deep into this topic and let's understand all relevant dimensions which are discussed in this article. Now, if we talk about Indian aviation safety and the reforms required. So first of all, we need to look into the regulatory and operational deficiencies which are existing. The Director General of Civil Aviation, which is an apex body under Minister of Civil Aviation, it has shown a very limited internal technical capabilities. So therefore, the Director General of Civil Aviation very often depending excessively on foreign regulators, as witnessed in the Pratt & Whitney engine failure that took place in 2017 and 18. So therefore, there is a need to substantially boost the capabilities of the Director General of Civil Aviation, and there is also need to reduce its dependence on the foreign regulators. Secondly, Indian airlines are routinely violating the flight time duty limitations. While the Director General of Civil Aviation very often issues some exemptions to these airlines, however, the fatigued pilots, they operate under the coercive employment contracts. And in fact, cabin crew safety rules are also very often undervalued in India. So overall, it has been leading to compromising in-flight security, and that is the major area where we need reforms. And in fact, in the year 2008, the government has even bypassed the statutory protections allowing the unauthorized construction near airports, such as in Mumbai, increasing physical and radar interference risks with the aviation. So therefore, new airports like Navy Mumbai, they face similar threats due to misplaced NOC policies. No objection certificates are being issued very close to the airports, and that has been leading to increasing physical and radar interference risks for the airplanes. So therefore, these are the three areas that have to be looked into. So firstly, we need to minimize the physical and radar interference risks, and we should also substantially increase the capabilities of Director General of Civil Aviation. And secondly, we should also strictly regulate the flight time duty limitations of airlines. So these are the three different areas that need immediate reforms. And if we talk about the judicial oversight and legal loopholes which are existing in flight aviation sector, so judiciary has played a very important role in preventing the high-risk developments. And in fact, in 2016, Bombay High Court says that indirectly prevented additional casualties during 2018 Gorakhpur-Ghatakpur crash. Right, so therefore we can conclude that judiciary has been playing a very important and a very critical role, and that has been preventing the high risk developments which have been taking place in the aviation sector. So therefore we should not neglect the role of judiciary here. However, in 2015 rules, they actually gave a statutory recognition. Now, what does statutory recognition actually means? A statutory recognition is a recognition given by a law passed by the parliament. So therefore, the 2015 rules gave statutory recognition to the appellate committees, which have already permitted the unsafe constructions very close to the airports, which are interfering with the radars near the airports. And in fact, these panels are staffed by the officials who are responsible for the safety enforcement, and therefore they have been creating a conflict of interest. So I hope you knew the definition of the conflict of interest, right? So therefore this conflict of interest should be minimized at any cost to further strengthen the aviation safety in India. And apart from that, there are a number of public interest litigations they already filed in various courts, and they have been highlighting the inner horizontal surface violations. And apart from that, the public interest litigations also highlighting the radar obstructions, and authorities including the Director General of Civil Aviation and the Airports Authority of India, they have failed to act transparently, allowing obstacle or proliferation from 125 to over 1000 constructions. We have understood the problem with such constructions very close to the airports, because they obstruct the radar signals, they interfere with the radar signals. So therefore they actually create a huge problems for the aeroplanes. So therefore, if we talk about this, we need to have a systematic culture. However, the problem is a systemic culture of neglect, and we need to look into this systemic culture in Indian aviation sector to minimize these accidents that have been taking place and ensure the flight safety, and also further strengthen the trust and confidence among the people who are ready to take the flight. Now, in fact, the Indian aviation actually lacks the comprehensive safety culture. However, any airline which requires a comprehensive safety culture to further strengthen the confidence and trust of the people. However, the systemic violations persist despite existing knowledge of risks. The Swiss cheese model actually illustrates how multiple aligned failures lead to fatal accidents. And in fact, the Swiss cheese model explains that if there are multiple aligned failures, and that multiple aligned failures over a period of time will lead to the fatal accidents. Now in India, we have a knowledge of risks, but despite having knowledge of risks, we are neglecting the comprehensive safety culture in the Indian aviation sector. So therefore, we must focus on comprehensive safety culture in Indian aviation sector. And apart from that, there is existing internal dissent, and this internal dissent is very often discouraged, right? So we need to encourage this internal dissent among the staff, so that we could be able to know the problems, we could be able to know the issues which are existing with these different airlines, right? So the internal dissent is discouraged. Whistleblowers are reporting safety violations. They actually face problems like transfers, demotions, or terminations by these airlines. And that is how the internal dissent is discouraged by the airlines. And they are further entering into the non-compliance within the airlines or Airports Authority of India. And here, the entire ecosystem, such as aircraft design, maintenance, crew welfare, air traffic management. So all these different factors actually require urgent regulatory, judiciary, and the policy overhaul. So it should be in compliance with the comprehensive safety culture that has to be developed in Indian aviation sector. Now, without having such reforms, we can expect such accidents taking place time and again in future as well. So it is high time that Indian aviation sector must look into all these different issues which are existing, and there is a need for a comprehensive reform to ensure comprehensive safety culture within Indian aviation sector. Now, in all emerging countries, Indian aviation sector has been growing at a faster pace. So therefore, in this context, it is very important that we need to further strengthen the safety and security of Indian aviation sector to boost confidence among the people. I hope you have understood this topic. And the next important topic is India in global artificial intelligence governance. Now, we all knew that artificial intelligence is an emerging area, and in fact, it has a multifaceted applications in different and diverse areas. Now, in this context, India is a country with a huge demographic dividend and a lot of manpower. India is one of the largest markets in the world. So India can rightly play their role as a leader in the global artificial intelligence governance. So first, let's try to understand the context, and before that, this topic is very important from General Studies Paper 3 point of view. So since artificial intelligence is an emerging technology, this is one of the favorite topics of UPSC. So therefore, we must understand the importance of artificial intelligence here. What is the context? The context is that India is going to host the Artificial Intelligence Impact Summit in February 2026. In fact, the Artificial Intelligence Impact Summit that India is going to host, in this particular summit, India is aiming to demonstrate how governments, not just the corporations, can actually guide the artificial intelligence towards an inclusive development, safety and global cooperation. So therefore, these are the different areas that India is going to focus on in AI Impact Summit that is going to be held in India in the year 2026 February. Right? So achieving inclusive development with the artificial intelligence, agriculture, health, education, labor, so all these different areas, and the safety and security through using artificial intelligence and global cooperation and collaboration among different countries to further strengthen or to further ensure the benefits of artificial intelligence reach to every section of this entire world. So now we'll understand how India could actually leverage its strengths for inclusive artificial intelligence leadership. So if we can talk about this, so first of all, we need to understand what exactly is an artificial intelligence and how it is different from machine learning and deep learning. So these are also some technologies which are very often in use, and they are sometimes integrated with the artificial intelligence as well. Now, if we talk about the artificial intelligence, so it is a development of smart systems, machines. They can actually carry out different tasks that typically require human intelligence. So machines cannot carry out certain sophisticated tasks. However, using artificial intelligence, we can ensure that these machines can carry out sophisticated tasks performed by the human beings, which is artificial intelligence. Now, when we talk about the machine learning, so machine learning actually creates algorithms that can learn from the existing data. Now, India is a country which generates a huge amounts of data almost like every hour. And based on that particular data, they can actually make decisions based on the patterns observed. However, machine learning requires human intervention when decision is incorrect. Now, what is deep learning, which is also an emerging technology which can be integrated with the artificial intelligence as well? So deep learning uses an artificial neural network to reach accurate conclusions without any human interventions. So these are the three different types of emerging technologies: deep learning, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Now, if we come back to this particular topic, so how can India leverage strengths for inclusive artificial intelligence leadership? Now, the Apex Ministry, which looks into the artificial intelligence in India, the India's Ministry of Electronics and IT, which has initiated a nationwide artificial intelligence consultation. through a MyGov platform. And in fact, it has invited inputs from different students, researchers, and startups. So thereby providing summit with the grassroots legitimacy and even the democratic input. So when I say democratic input, it has been asking from inputs from different sectors or from different fields. So therefore ensuring grassroots legitimacy as well. And apart from that, India's success with the platforms like Aadhaar and UPI. Now I can say that Aadhaar and UPI are most successful platforms in India. And in fact, other countries are also mimicking India's UPI platforms, because UPI platforms have revolutionized digital payments in India. So therefore, India's success with platforms like Aadhaar and UPI, they have showcased the equitable deployment of digital tools across India and positioning this country to guide artificial intelligence inclusive application at a global scale. And apart from that, India even proposes that the delegations make actionable pledges such as translating healthcare information into local languages, because it is very important that India is a diverse country where people from different states and different regions speak different languages. They have to understand the information in their local languages or regional languages. Now in this, artificial intelligence will actually play a very important role in translating the healthcare information into the local languages or regional languages. And in fact, it can be tracked publicly to foster transparency and even the measurable impact as well. So in fact, this is one of the potential application of the artificial intelligence in India. However, despite huge potential global divides existing when it comes to the artificial intelligence and its applications across the world, and along with the global gaps, and there are also artificial intelligence governance gaps as well. Now, I hope you have understood what is a digital divide. Digital divide actually means there are different types of access in rural areas, urban areas, among men and women, which is called as digital divide. Both these different groups don't have equal access. So in a similar way, there are the global divides and even artificial intelligence governance gaps which are existing, and it is important to address these global gaps to ensure inclusive development of artificial intelligence. And here India can actually ensure inclusive representation by promoting participation from the underrepresented areas. Now understand, India is known as the leader of the global south. And in fact, India had taken an initiative to include African Union in G20 when India hosted the G20 summit in the year 2023. So therefore, India can actually ensure the inclusive representation of the global south by promoting participation from the underrated regions. Particularly, I would say the global south is an underrepresented region. And even proposing an artificial intelligence for billions fund, which could be funded by the development banks and the Gulf investors. So that would ensure the inclusive representation of people into the artificial intelligence domain. And even India can propose the formation of global artificial intelligence safety collaborative that standardizes stress testing, read timing, and bias evaluation of the artificial intelligence models for exceeding the computer threshold as well. And even to balance the regulatory extremes which are existing among different jurisdictions, India may draft a middle path AI code of conduct, thereby mandating a voluntary yet specific norms like reporting red team results and even disclosing the computer thresholds. So by these methods, India can actually address the global divides and the AI governance gaps across the globe. Now, if we talk about regulating artificial intelligence, the government at the governments at the global level have come up with number of initiatives. For example, the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence that was launched in the year 2020, and Black-Kelly Declaration, which enhances the global collaboration on artificial intelligence that has been came into existence in the year 2023. G20 New Delhi's Leaders Declaration 2023, which harnesses AI responsibly for good and for all, and Hiroshima AI Process 2023 by G7 countries. So this is how at the global level artificial intelligence is to be regulated. Understand, artificial intelligence is having number of applications. Artificial intelligence would revolutionize the way human beings are now living, but at the same time it also has the drawbacks. So therefore it is important to regulate the artificial intelligence at the global level, because there are no borders to regulate the artificial intelligence, and that is why all different countries have come together through these different initiatives to regulate the artificial intelligence. And when we talk about the artificial intelligence and India's leadership role in artificial intelligence governance, we have to promote the global unity, and we should also avoid the geopolitical fragmentation when it comes to the AI governance. So in order to do so, the Paris AI Summit's divisions, and remember that this Paris AI Summit has been asked in this year UPSC prelims examination. So the Paris AI Summit divisions, so they have highlighted there are certain geopolitical strains which are existing among the major economies, and India's 2026 Artificial Intelligence Summit must aim for consensus among all major countries, thereby focusing on shared values but not rival blocs, because still now the world is divided. So therefore, India must try for consensus by focusing on shared values among all different countries, highlighting the global gaps which are existing in the artificial intelligence access and penetration. And in the summit, India could even announce a multilingual AI challenge targeting 50 underserved languages, thereby reinforcing AI talent and also value creation. So these factors are globally distributed. And apart from that, rather than building a new authority, India should weave together the existing global AI frameworks and emerge as a bridge between the developed and developing nations, and that's how India can actually play a leadership role in governance of artificial intelligence at the global level. And if we talk about India and its journey towards the artificial intelligence, India has already launched a national strategy for artificial intelligence in the year 2018. And apart from that, the AI for All, a self-learning online program, has already been started. And apart from that, the Artificial Intelligence Summit 2023, that has been hosted by India. And India AI mission has been launched in the year 2024. US India Artificial Intelligence Initiative, it is a cooperative initiative on artificial intelligence. Both India and US would cooperate on different critical areas. And India has already launched Airawat, which is AI research, analytics and knowledge assimilation platform supercomputer. So this is how India has making a rapid strides in adoption of artificial intelligence through number of different initiatives. So I hope you have understood this topic. And next important topic is reviving foreign direct investment in emerging economies, including India. And this topic has been given in the Indian Express newspaper, and this could be important for your General Studies paper 3. So let's try to understand the context of this topic. So if we discuss the topic, context of the topic, the foreign direct investment. So we all knew what exactly is a foreign direct investment, and this foreign direct investment is very important for any country because it can create infrastructure. It can result in creation of gainful employment opportunities for the people, and it could result in both economic growth as well as economic development in any country. And similarly, it would result in social safety nets and social security for its people. And similarly, countries' production would improve. And production increase actually means that countries' products would become more and more competitive at the global level. And apart from that, it can actually bring in the technology that is actually required, and it also brings in the expertise into any country. So overall, the foreign direct investment is very important for any country, particularly for emerging countries like India. Foreign direct investment is very important. However, the foreign direct investment into the emerging markets and developing economies, in short, they are being called as EMDES, emerging markets and developing economies. So it has fallen to a 2-decade low in the year 2023. So it has been prompting concerns over declining global investment appetite and necessitating proactive reforms by India to remain competitive and attract the capital flows from other countries. So as I have already told you that the foreign direct investment is very important for any country, and India should attract large-scale foreign direct investment. Now, if we talk about the global trends and India's FDI positioning, the FDI inflows into the emerging markets and developing economies, it actually fell to 445 billion in 2023, which is lowest since 2005. And in fact, with the fall in the total FDIs, their GDP also shrinking to 2%. However, if we talk about the impact of declining FDI inflows into the emerging markets and developing economies, it will further result in global slowdown like we have experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic, and few trade deals among the different countries, and even rising geopolitical contributions. All these factors have contributed to this dip in foreign direct investment into these emerging markets and developing economies. However, despite such a dip, India saw 14% increase in the gross FDI in the financial year 25. But the net FDI plunged to 96% due to the repatriation and low reinvestment of profits. So when any company which comes with the foreign direct investment into India, so if it makes profit, if the company expects that the prospects are good in India, they actually reinvest their profits in India. But here the problem is that there are low reinvestment of profits. That essentially means that they're taking back the profits into their home countries, right? So despite being better placed structurally, India mirrors the global trend with critical domestic challenges that it has been facing. Now, if we look into the sectoral and geographical trends in FDI into the emerging economies like India, so there are certain growth areas which attract a large-scale FDI. For example, the digital services, electric vehicles, clean energy, and manufacturing. While legacy sectors such as telecom, they have experienced decline in the FDI levels. And if we talk about the regional performance in terms of attracting foreign direct investment, FDI remains concentrated in some states like Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, and Delhi. On the other hand, other states like Bihar, UP, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, they performed poorly in terms of attracting investment, particularly the foreign direct investment. However, there are certain policy gap and structural reforms also required. So if we talk about the structural reforms which are required, so we need to work on improving the logistics and infrastructure in India. Because in India we have a high logistic cost, and that disincentivizes investments into India. Because in India we have a high turnaround times, for example Kolkata port, which is around 140 plus hours, and that could hinder the investor confidence. So it is important for us to boost the investor confidence to attract FDI on a large scale into India. And apart from that, we should prioritize port efficiency, logistic modernization, and contract enforcement. And all these factors would improve the investor confidence and also boost the ease of doing business in India, and that will help attract large-scale FDIs into India. And apart from that, we should also have the strategic alliances, and that could potentially facilitate the trade among different countries, particularly with India. Now, if we talk about the bilateral trades, India must accelerate deals with countries like European Union, UK, Australia, and UAE. With these countries, we have surplus trade balance, and such bilateral trades will help counter China plus one strategy. Now, if we talk about the integration strategy, India's free trade agreements, they must align with the domestic capabilities and seek higher trade coverage as well. And similarly, we should also focus on regulatory framework and the investment climate improvement. So in order to improve the investment climate, we should boost the we need to work on improving the ease of doing business. For that, what we have to do, we need to ensure swift land acquisition, legal clarity, and tax reforms, and they are the prerequisites for improving the ease of doing business in India. So similarly, we should also focus on the institutional coordination, which is much needed. So therefore, a centralized body must streamline the approvals across union and state entities as well. Right? So therefore, we need to plug in all these policy gaps, and also we need to bring in some structural reforms as well. So how can we unlock the future investment potential in India? So therefore, we can actually attract investments on a large scale. Now, India is a country which is known for a huge demographic dividend. So therefore, we must leverage the demographic dividend into India. So what we have to do, we need to invest in developing human capital. So India's young workforce can actually become a magnet for investment with appropriate skilling and even the job creation as well. For that, we need to focus on education, digital infrastructure, and ease of hiring, and they need a sustained focus. And we should also invest in education and healthcare as well, particularly technical and vocational education as well, because we have mismatch between what the academic institutions teach and what the industry requires. And we should also leverage the global shifts as well, particularly the geopolitical realignments post COVID-19 pandemic and supply chain diversification create space for India. And in this context, India must project reliability, openness, and scale to investors. And the confidence and clarity should be considered as a core pillars to attract investment on a large scale. So therefore, capital seeks transparent, stable, credible economic governance. And the strategic messaging involves India must project consistent policies and institutional commitments to reforms. And that's how India can boost the confidence of the foreign investors, and that's how India can actually attract investment on a large scale, particularly in the context of shrinking the foreign direct investment into the emerging markets and the developing countries. I hope you have understood this topic, and this is very important for gender studies paper 3. And next important topic is India is going to develop the first indigenous malaria vaccine, because India is a country with the largest burden of malaria cases and largest number of deaths due to the malaria. So therefore, we need to have a malaria vaccine that is indigenously developed to address the problem of the excess number of malaria cases and malaria deaths in India. So India is developing Adfalci-Vax. So this Adfalci-Vax is a new malaria vaccine, right? So this is a new malaria vaccine candidate which targets the Plasmodium falciparum. So the Plasmodium falciparum is the malaria parasite which causes malaria among the human beings, right? So this causes malaria among the human beings, and in fact it is being spearheaded by the Indian Council of Medical Research and the Department of Biotechnology. It aims to prevent the clinical malaria episodes and community transmission, thereby supporting India's Make in India initiative and malaria elimination strategy that we have developed. Right, so understand one thing, that we need to eliminate the malaria because India has the highest global burden of malaria cases. So therefore it is very, very important that India should focus on these areas. And this development marks a significant step towards creating the first malaria vaccine that addresses the multiple stages of the parasite life cycle. Right, so therefore it would result in addressing the problem or the burden of malaria that India has been facing since last few decades. Now if we talk about vaccine design and its purpose, this Ad-Falcivax is India's first indigenous recombinant chimeric malaria vaccine, and in fact it actually targets two key stages of Plasmodium falciparum and its life cycle. Thereby it enhances the protective effectiveness because both a pre-erythrocytic vaccine and blood staged vaccine as well. Right, so therefore the Ad-Falcivax targets two stages of Plasmodium falciparum's life cycle. So ultimately it further enhances its overall effectiveness as a both pre-erythrocytic vaccine and blood stage vaccine. And in fact it has been designed to both prevent human infection, reduce parasitic transmission in communities, acting as one of the promising transmission blocking vaccines. It even supports India's long-term goal of malaria elimination through the local innovation in the malaria control. And it is being aligned with Make in India initiative of achieving self-reliance in health innovation. Therefore, we will not depend on any country for our malaria vaccine. So we indigenously developed this Ad-Falcivax vaccine. And it even utilizes the structural vaccinology approaches to optimize the antigen design and even the immune response after this vaccine. Right, so therefore if we talk about the institutional collaboration and progress that has been achieved in this, so it has been developed by the Indian Council of Medical Research in collaboration with the Department of Biotechnology and National Institute of Immunology. And this vaccine actually shows a high efficacy in preclinical studies. Thereby, it has demonstrated a strong B-cell responses and targeting the circumsporozoid protein. So the circumsporozoid protein is associated with Plasmodium falciparum parasite which causes the malaria disease. Now currently it is actually in the early stage of research and not yet approved for the clinical use. So once it is approved for the clinical use, once we understood the side effects of it, and only then it will be allowed for the commercial production. Right? So represents a major milestone in India's vaccine research capabilities, particularly for a high transmission settings. And in fact, it also further strengthens and reinforces India's growing contribution to the global health, research and development and malaria control efforts at the global level and at the national level as well. And therefore, India shows the potential for providing heterogeneous protection against different malaria strains as well. Right? So I hope you have understood some important and key details about this malaria vaccine that has been developed by the Department of Biotechnology and Indian Council of Medical Research. Right? So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much.